I just wanted to start by welcoming all of you to Community Connections with Let's Grow Kids. We're so excited you're here, and we are just overwhelmed by the response from our Let's Grow Kids community at large across the state to join us today. We had one of these earlier today at 1 o'clock and now again tonight at 8, and it's just incredible to see everybody coming here today. And we know that right now, all of us here in Vermont are really in this current situation together, handling a pandemic like we've never seen before. And we also know that we all have very diverse experiences with that. And so it's nice when we get to all come together in this virtual atmosphere to connect with each other. I'd love to start by letting you know that this webinar is recorded and it will be posted on our website afterwards for you to watch and share with friends. And I'm going to introduce you to some of the other co-hosts that are here with me today. So my name's Anna Gebhardt, and I am Field Director at Let's Grow Kids. And we also have with us today several other Let's Grow Kids staff. Emily Blistine, our Director of Business Strategy, will be chatting with you. Maria Richards, our Data Specialist, is actually going to be behind the scenes today. She's running our PowerPoint for us, and she is handling some of the different interactive tools we have. We also have Sarah Kenny, our Senior Director of Policy, on, and Beal St. George, our Engagement and Stewardship Officer, so you'll be hearing from Beal. And then we have three of our action team leaders and early educators here to answer some of your questions. And that is Ellen Gillette, owner and director of Sunshine Daydream Childcare, Dominique Vitoretto, teacher at the Davis School Preschool, and Don Irwin, owner and director of Growing with Wonder. So we're excited. You'll get to meet all of these people throughout the time together tonight, and there's some other Let's Grow Kids staff that'll be introducing themselves in the chat and helping to answer some of your questions there in the chat, or offering some different links and things for you to make this experience as interactive as possible. So let's go over the agenda. What can you expect in this hour? Well, we're right now in our welcome and overview section, so we'll just set the stage, and then you'll hear an update from Let's Grow Kids. We'll go over some of the things that have been happening and get you really up to speed. Then we'll really take your questions, and we're setting some time to answer questions that we received through the registration. And we also will be taking questions through the question and answer tool here on the Zoom. And so we'll answer as many questions as we can tonight, but we'll also have continued resources for you after this. And then we will look at the big picture and take action together. So we will hopefully get through all of this in 1 hour. So stay with us, and I'm going to pass it over to Emily Blistine to give you some of the details about our call.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Blistine. I'm the Director of Business Strategy. I have my—
Emily, I can't hear you. I don't know if other people are having a hard time hearing Emily.
Can you hear me now? How's that?
Oh. Okay.
How's that? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I was just noticing that my internet was not very good. And so I called this meeting up on my phone at the same time, which is appropriate because I was just going to do a little bit of housekeeping with all of you to say that because this is a large group of people, it's a webinar style. So we have chosen to have, you guys can see and hear us most of the time, but you are muted and we cannot see you. As you have just seen, we are working from home with various rates of internet, and some of us still have kids who are awake and animals who are around, so you may see or hear them in the background, but we're going to do our best to keep ourselves in our own rooms. This webinar will be recorded, so if you find it helpful, you'll be able to find it on our website, and please share it with your friends. we will be using the chat function and the polling for participation. So at different points, we'll be prompting you to answer some questions and answer a poll that will be able to be seen by everyone. So please participate in that way. At the same time, if you have individual questions for us, please use the Q&A function, and we'll be able to catalog those questions. And if there's time at the end, we'll be able to answer those for you. We did receive a lot of questions with your registration, so we have used those to pepper the chat with as we go through. We would encourage you to see, as you can see on the PowerPoint there is our Let's Grow Kids coronavirus page. It's a great resource for parents, for early educators, for business leaders. All of the webinars that we've done in the past are there, so you can find those and a lot of other really great information. We're also going to follow up with an email that gives you lots of good follow-up information. And also for those of you, as you can see, or as you'll see soon, you're calling in from all over the state, but we will have opportunities for you to have more regional groups going forward. So thank you guys. Thank you for letting me shift from computer to phone very quickly. I'm glad that worked. And I'm going to turn it over to Beal, who's going to test out one of the first ways that we can all interact with each other.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name's Beal. I am, as Anna said, the Engagement and Stewardship Officer at Let's Grow Kids. So some of you have already done this, and so thank you so much. To those of you who have not introduced yourselves yet in the chat window, feel free to use that button down at the bottom of your screen that says chat, and you can share your name, the town that you live in, and how you are connected to Let's Grow Kids. And maybe you are a longtime Let's Grow Kids volunteer, and maybe this is the first time you've heard about Let's Grow Kids. And so feel free to share any of that with us. We love to hear from you. And when you're sending it, feel free to click in the to box. You can send your message not just to all panelists so that we can see it, but also to all attendees. So if you choose all panelists and all attendees, then we can all see your note, and it's just a really lovely way to interact. So thank you all so much.
Great. As the introductions are pouring in, I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and some new names. It sounds like we've got lots of connections in the community, and it's so great to see you all joining us here tonight. So as you continue to introduce yourselves, and we can see the diversity of people who are here: South Burlington, Essex, Brattleboro, Windham, Lyndonville. I mean, really, we're covering the whole state here, and we'll have another opportunity to take a look at that. It's really exciting. I'd love to give you guys a little bit update from Let's Grow Kids. So we'll move to the next slide, but if you haven't introduced yourself yet, keep those coming in. So Let's Grow Kids has always been focused on ensuring access to high quality, affordable childcare for all Vermont families who need it. For over 10 years, we've been focused on strengthening the early care and education system today, and raising awareness among Vermonters, both about the importance of high quality care and the impact that Vermont's childcare crisis has on Vermonters, including our youngest children, our working families, businesses and the workforce, our demographics at large here in Vermont, and the childcare crisis has a strong impact on Vermont's economy. With the incredible work of Vermont advocates, you really have all made this a top issue in Vermont. We've built a statewide movement of people and organizations that are working together like never before to make positive, lasting change for our kids. This has just been absolutely incredible to witness. So let's take a look now to see this statewide movement in actions. We're going to use another tool here for interaction. It's a poll, and it should be popping up on your screen. And simply click on the bubble that best describes where you live. So choose a county, and we'll just get a sense for regionally, where are those of us here on the call tonight, where are we all? So I'll just take a couple more minutes for everyone to click a bubble. And in a moment, we will publish the results and get a little peek into where is everybody calling from. Wow, look at that. We really cover the entire state here. It's pretty amazing to see that we have participation from every single county. So like I said, this is truly a statewide movement. And that's what got us where we landed at the beginning of 2020. So in a galaxy far, far away, once upon a very long time ago, it was January of 2020. And this statewide movement had made it possible for us to have an incredibly robust policy agenda focused on childcare in Vermont. Our advocacy was focused in 3 areas. We were advocating for supports and increased investments to support our early childhood educators. And we were looking for supports for children and families to access childcare through the Child Care Financial Assistance Program, and including important technology upgrades. We were also engaging employers in being part of the childcare solution. So we had a really robust policy agenda and a lot of engagement across the state. And I know a lot of the people here on this call tonight were a big part of that. So we were mobilizing and we were activating, and so many of you were calling your legislators and emailing your legislators and meeting in person in your town, holding events to bring awareness to childcare. It was really being talked about in every corner of Vermont. And at the beginning of March, hundreds of Vermonters were registered for Early Childhood Day at the legislature and the Rally for Kids. We were ready to head to Montpelier and really push home the efforts towards our agenda and getting important advancements made for Vermont's kids. And then we could have never predicted that we would be facing such a worldwide pandemic as we are right now. So we had to pivot, and Emily's going to tell you a little bit about what Let's Grow Kids has been up to over the last 8 weeks as we've been responding to the current needs and the situation.
Thank you, Anna. So on the business strategy team, we are out in the communities talking to business leaders. So we're talking to them about work that they can do internally in their business to help support their employees' childcare needs through benefits and practice changes. We're also working with them to talk about how they can support the childcare providers in their communities and about how they themselves can become vocal champions for early childcare. So a lot of the conversations we're having are really the fundamentals of it are saying their employees, they're saying to us, our employees can't get to work without childcare. So we understand how crucial it is. And a lot of the early conversations pre-COVID were about the fact that there wasn't enough childcare. And so they really understand this conversation that childcare is fundamental and necessary support to get employees to work. In the last 2 months, it seems like all of a sudden everybody's having that conversation, which obviously it's been incredibly challenging to each of us in many different ways. But the opportunity that it presents is that all of a sudden there is a statewide and a national conversation about childcare being fundamental in order to even be able to let us have the conversation about whether or not we can get back to work. So at Let's Grow Kids, in a lot of ways, as you'll hear from Sarah and you've heard from Anna, our agenda hasn't changed in a lot of ways. We're still working toward the same mission, but our day-to-day work over the last 2 months has shifted dramatically. And I just want to give you a little peek inside to what our work has looked like over the last 2 months. We have been working closely with Vermont's administration, with early care and education programs, our federal delegation, business leaders, and state and national advocacy organizations in a variety of ways. A few of the things we've done, we've started putting together and hosting online learning opportunities for early educators. So if there are any early educators on the call, that coronavirus page that I mentioned at the beginning will have a link about webinars, and there you can find all of the past information that we've provided around taxes and regulations and the PPP and all of the possible loan credits and how you should be thinking about those things. Actually, if you're a small business owner of any kind, they could be some pretty helpful webinars for you. We also are helping to create and support emergency childcare infrastructure for essential workers. So when folks needed to get back to work, we really started contacting providers who were willing to stay open, and we needed to get them what they needed. So a lot of what we did was getting them the emergency supplies that they needed in order to reopen. We've also launched an emergency fund to support childcare programs. We've supported families and businesses affected by childcare closures. We've collaborated with state and local partners to be a resource for childcare programs and for early childhood educators. We've also, as this call demonstrates, we've been working to collect feedback from families with young children to figure out what policymakers and what state agencies need to understand about this idea of whether and when we can go back to work. The business team is continuing to do a lot of the work that we did, maybe not a lot, a little of the work that we've done before in supporting both regional efforts from business leaders. And I did have a call today with a business that was really interested in hearing about what they could do to support their employees' new needs. So we're continuing to do that work. And we're also highlighting any businesses who are working right now to support their employees' childcare needs. So if you're an employee who's an essential employee, or if your business has done something to make working possible around your childcare needs, we'd love to tell those stories. And we'd love for you to email either me, I'm just Emily at Let's Grow Kids, or Natalie is Natalie at letsgrowkids.org. We'd love to hear those stories and tell them. So right now, that really gets us to this moment. So we're able to lift our heads up a little bit and breathe. And it's really a diverse group of stakeholders that's come here today. And so we'd love to take this opportunity to learn a little bit more about the community that's on this call today. And so Marie is going to put up another poll, and this one is about hearing from you and letting us know why you're on the call today. Does anybody know, is it still only possible to choose one? Oops, I can't see you now that I said that. Is it still only possible to choose one option?
People should be able to choose more than one, I think.
Yeah.
So give it a try, one or many.
You guys are on the second call where we've hopefully changed a few things. But if you can only choose the one that's most important to you, but you can write in the chat some other reasons that you're here. So did you join the call because you're stuck at home with young kids? Maybe you chose this time with the hope that they are sleeping. Are you passionate about ensuring all Vermont children have what they need to thrive? Are you concerned about the transition back to childcare and work? Are you just curious to hear what we have to say? Are you eager to help and want to know how? Or is it all of the above for you? So you can input your poll answer now.
Wow, incredible. Thank you guys for participating in this way. It's so nice to see your live results. So we do have several people who are marooned at home with small children, and we are here to help. And a lot of people who are really passionate about our young kids. And you know, we all want them to thrive. And we all also have a lot of concerns about the transition back. So it's really good to see that that's something people are, you know, wanting to discuss tonight. And we've got some people eager to help and some curiosity and all of the above. So this is exciting, and we are going to get in to some questions next. So I will say it may be close to impossible for us to answer every single question tonight, but as we touch base on some of the questions we've collected and the ones we'll answer, you can also, as things are coming into your mind, just go ahead and use the question and answer tool, the Q&A section, to type your questions there. And we'll be able to actually read through all of those, and we'll try to read them in live time, but we'll also be able to have those on file after this call is over, and we will get back to you with answers and more resources. So we did get a ton of questions, and they fell into 3 main categories. The first category being how to support the emotional health of our children right now. And so we have 2 early educators on the call, Ellen and Dominique, who will give you some tips and tricks for being home with your kids right now. And there was a number of people really wanting to know how they can help and how they can get involved. So Dawn Irwin, one of our action team leaders and incredible advocates, will tell you a little bit more about how you can get involved. And then we will answer some questions about what will the reopening of childcare look like in Vermont. We'll tell you all that we know and all that we don't know, because there's a lot of uncertainties as we've, we're all managing something that's never been managed before, and there's no guidebook, but we're here together, and we're going to do it together. So, so let's get into our first question. I'd love to introduce you to Ellen Drolette. And Ellen, we had a question through our registration, and we were hoping that you could let us know, how can parents support their own children at home with emotional breakdowns and transitions?
Thanks, Anna. So that is a really great question. And I think that when we talk about emotional breakdowns, one of the things that I always try to think about is, what's at the root of that problem and, what's causing it. So a few things to think about: are they hungry? Are they tired? Are they overtired? And taking a step back, keeping schedules consistent is really important. So as we think about transitioning, encouraging families to try to get that schedule nice and tight. And so there can be consistency as we move forward towards opening everything back up. Also, maybe providing families with a visual of what maybe the day at school looks like, so they can mimic that the best that they can. If there's trouble with transitions, maybe doing a visual of first, then this, then we can do that. Those are really helpful when there's struggles that lead to very emotional breakdowns. And making sure children are well fed, have snacks, and have good meals. There's nothing worse than a hangry toddler. And so making sure that if you're leaving the house, you're taking a snack with you. If you're going on a hike, it's not too close to meal times. Those are always really big ones. And sharing that with families is also really important, because I think what comes naturally sometimes to early childhood educators, because we're so regimented with our schedules and consistency, that sometimes other people just don't think about that. And the other thing is, just for ourselves as early childhood educators and for families, I'm thinking that there's going to be a lot of emotional breakdowns as people return to what post-COVID is going to look like. And I think, the best thing we can do for families and for ourselves is to make sure that we're holding space for children when they're having these emotional breakdowns, and not try to squash them or tell them, oh, you're fine, stop crying, nothing's wrong, get up. I think we need to kind of sit down with them in the muck and mud and just kind of let them go through what they're feeling, and offer calm down strategies of taking deep breaths. Do they need space? And giving some techniques, and also offering them, names of their emotions, and having these conversations with families, I think is, extraordinarily important at this very moment, because these kids have been alone. They haven't, well, many of them haven't been with siblings. They've just been by with themselves. So, I thought to myself, I've been closed for 2 months. I've never had 2 months closed at a time. So it's like these kids are coming back with new developmental skills, and they haven't seen each other. So all of the social emotional books are back out on the bookshelf. So all of those books about sharing and kindness and making friends are all back out because it's all like starting over again. So the other thing that I was thinking about as Anna and I were talking about these questions was thinking about parents and productivity and how they're trying to work and get things done while they have children at home. And, you know, some of the things that I've offered to parents is in terms of activity ideas is, you know, offering Play-Doh to children when there's a call that you have to be on, and offering Play-Doh and having them sit next to you, and giving them some kitchen tools that they can use with the Play-Doh, and having them be engaged in something while you're next to them, while you're pushing on the Play-Doh with them, can help them feel engaged. So those are some tips, and I think some good ideas that are starting to help thinking about those transitions, and helping families think about those transitions as well.
Thank you, Ellen. You know, I'll just take that in for a minute. Whew. So I want to just take a quick moment to apologize for any kind of technical glitches. As we do connect in this virtual way, there's always some little bumps, and we're all doing our best and getting used to it, as Emily was saying earlier. So you know, continue to let us know if there's any specific support we can offer, and there are staff here that are hoping to do their best to help you, but we're also really learning about these tools for the first time right now while we're trying them. So next we want to stay on this theme of supporting kids, and we have Dominique, who is a preschool teacher. And Dominique, we had some questions come in from parents, and we were hoping that you could, as a preschool teacher, give some advice for parents who are homeschooling children while also working from home right now.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. When I am thinking about ways to support parents and families, one of the first, there's 4 things that come to mind. The very first thing that comes to mind is you need to show yourself grace as parents. You need to be kind to yourself and cut yourself some slack. There is no rule book of how we should be right now. This is brand new for everyone. We're all trying to figure this out together. And trust yourself. You are the expert of your family and your kiddos, and you know their needs. And so whatever you're feeling is your gut reaction to what's best for your family is what's best for them. My second big thing is to find your groove. Ellen talked a lot about routines. Kids thrive on their routines and predictability. And so any chance you can get to keep things kind of similar from day to day will pay off a lot in the long run. Also, kids love being able to see what's happening next. So Ellen mentioned a little about visuals. I love to use them too, and they can be as simple as like when we have our community gatherings at school, we just have our simple, like, there's 4 things we do and here they are, and it can be like a really simple picture, especially with little ones. Like, you don't have to be an artist. Yeah. And also, if visuals can also work for things like a bedtime checklist, or if we're gonna go out on an adventure and we need to leave the house, here are the things we need to do. And it can really benefit kiddos to be able to check off that and cross it off, or gives them a sense of ownership over the process. Another thing that came to mind was kind of letting go of those expectations of what you should be doing during this time. There's a lot of seeming pressure from society to be super productive, and productivity is going to go down. You're not going to be able to be as productive as you could be sitting alone in an office, because there's distractions. You're at home, and I think that Ellen had some really good ideas that she mentioned about things you can do while you're on calls, but also embrace the boredom. Let the kiddos get bored. Give them open-ended materials, like Ellen said, Play-Doh, or loose parts like like gems, or even just go outside and collect some sticks and some rocks. And there's so much creativity that comes out of that. And we know that kids learn best through play. So things like going outside and playing, and just like going outside looking for signs of spring. You can measure how big flowers are growing. You can look at the changes over time. You can make the observations. You can look for letters on the ground. I'm actually really amazed every time I go walking on the trails behind my house of how many letters I can just find randomly in sticks. And I'm like, just naturally are there. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool. And reading to kiddos is so big too. And not being afraid to read the same book over and over and over again, because that actually is very beneficial for helping kiddos retain some of that, or learn some of those print concepts. We as teachers, we can catch your kiddos up on the academic stuff. It's a lot harder to help mitigate some of those effects of toxic stress. So the most important thing right now is for your kiddos to know that they are safe and they are loved. And yeah, the connection part is key. That's the last big piece. For these kiddos right now, the relationships and the human connection piece is the absolute most important. They need snuggles, they need love, and they need to know that it's okay to feel those big feelings. And they need to know that you have those big feelings too, and that's okay. We're all going through the same stuff. We're not really that different from these little humans. We're frustrated that we can't leave the house too. We're frustrated that we can't see our friends. We want things to go back to normal just as much as the kiddos do, and we have a lot more control over our environments than they do. So just give yourselves a pat on the back that you're doing a great job right now, and cut yourself some slack, show yourself some grace. We're all working on this together. There really is no easy, this is going to be tricky. There's no easy way to just kind of get through it. So you're doing great.
Thank you, Dominique. I echo that. All parents out there with kids at home, you are doing amazing. We need to remember to tell each other that on a regular basis. Thank you so much. So now we're going to shift over to Dawn, and Dawn's going to tell us a little bit about her own advocacy journey and what you all can do to help right now in these times.
Thanks, Anna. Well, it's so exciting to be here with everybody participating in this event because we all share a common goal, and that's that we care deeply about our youngest and most vulnerable citizens. We've all been affected by the many issues that are facing the field of early childhood education. About 5 years ago, my life changed because of Let's Grow Kids and their mission. Back then, I was an early childhood educator and the mom of just one. Now I'm a mom of two. I was observing as well as experiencing a lot of the hardships young families in Vermont are facing due to the childcare crisis. I was feeling very overwhelmed, super hopeless and helpless, and I didn't know what to do about it. And a friend of mine told me about this organization that was working towards creating real change for our field and for the children and families that are affected by it. So one September night, I was super, super nervous, but I walked into my very first section team meeting, not knowing what to expect at all. But by the end of the meeting, I was completely hooked. And then 3 months later, I attended my very first Let's Grow Kids advocacy conference. And ever since then, I haven't looked back. The folks at Let's Grow Kids believed in me and have always believed in me and my ability to become an effective advocate for change, for real change. They took me, someone who had absolutely no experience and very little confidence in myself, and taught me that the passion that I had inside and a willingness to try new things really does go a long way. They offered me lots of different opportunities to use the skills that I had already established myself and use them to build onto new ones. And slowly, through lots of tiny little, very, very supported steps, I was able to grow outside of my comfort zone and really begin to believe in myself, and that real change for the early childhood education field in Vermont was actually really, really possible. And ever since that first day at that first action team meeting, I've done tons of stuff with Let's Grow Kids. The very first and most important was collecting petition signatures, and I'm going to actually ask you to do that right now. So if you could go to letsgrowkids.org, and you'll see a green button that says Sign Plus. It's green. If you could click that button and sign the petition if you haven't already, we would absolutely adore you for it. But so I've been collecting signatures. I've done door-to-door canvassing and phone banking. I've been a member of 2 separate action teams, the Essex and Burlington teams. I have initiated direct correspondence with legislators, organized a film event so folks could watch No Small Matter. And I've also facilitated talks with representatives face to face. And I've actually developed a really incredible connection with my representative, Mary Beth Redmond, where whenever we bump into each other out in Essex now, we like stop and we talk, and you know, it's just this really great thing, and we have this awesome connection. And so I'm here to tell you today that if someone like me can do this stuff and become a champion for Vermont's kids and families, then you can too. Because of Let's Grow Kids, I realized that I have a voice that's worth listening to and a story that's worth listening to. And they've helped me feel empowered and capable of creating real change. I've met so many talented and passionate and motivated humans in the LGK community from lots of different walks of life and different types of jobs and positions and spaces within the community. And everybody's willing to join their forces in a variety of different ways to make a difference in the lives of our neighbors. So please feel free to check out the Let's Grow Kids website, or reach out to me or other Rockstar volunteers or any of the incredible LGK staff members to help you realize the vision that you have for supporting Vermont's kids and families.
Woohoo! Woo! Go Dawn! We already have a new petition signer tonight. At least one. I'm sure more are going to come in. This is so fun. Thank you so much, Dawn. We always love hearing from you. It's such a pleasure. Whew. So now to hit our questions home, we're going to have Sarah come in just to tell us a little bit more about recovery and reopening. This is sort of the sobering part of the call here.
It is, and it's so invigorating to hear Don and Dominique and Ellen talk about their experiences and their expertise. I have seen all 3 of these expert advocates at work in the State House, talking to legislators and really making significant change. So it's so much fun to have you all here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I so appreciate Dominique's talking about, well, first of all, the magic of being bored, which is my 11-year-old's signature right now. There's so much boredom happening in our household. I'm sure it's great for his brain development. And also, I really appreciate everyone talking about the fact that this is really something unprecedented that we're all living through right now. And we all have to cut ourselves a little bit of slack, as well as all of those around us. And that, you know, it can be really overwhelming, and that's okay. That's the time we're in right now. We are all overwhelmed by all of these unanswered questions. But we also know that we have an incredibly strong early childhood community here in Vermont, and we are beyond committed as a community and here at Let's Grow Kids to working closely with the state and all of our partners across Vermont to figure it out. And here's the truth about this, right? Nobody actually has the answers right now. We don't have any models to work from because no one's ever lived through something like this before and tried to manage all of these pieces. And we're all figuring this out as we go. The state, policymakers, us as parents, in our workplaces, And so as with any new endeavor, this is going to take some time. And as is often the case when you try to rush complicated processes, there are going to be hiccups along the way. And I know some of us have seen that. I've seen some things in the Q&A and chat come through tonight. That things are, solutions are likely to be imperfect, at least to start, and we're figuring things out. All of that being said, we are steadfast in our resolve to find answers and to work as hard as we can to make sure that the questions and concerns of early educators and parents and businesses are heard by policymakers and folks at the statewide level. We're working really hard to make sure that we're all thinking carefully and creatively, and that we are absolutely prioritizing health and safety of children and families and of the early educators who are working with those kiddos. And that we use what we learned from the process of closing down childcare to inform our work as we all think together about how to reopen in a way that is thoughtful and to continue to learn as we go. So that's sort of where we're coming from and what our commitment is as we engage in these conversations. To talk a little bit about what recovery and reopening might look like, unfortunately, we don't know a whole lot. As our state and federal leaders begin to discuss terms for reopening economies, our focus is likewise trained on how we can begin thinking about reopening childcare programs in Vermont. And at this time, we still have many more questions than we do answers. What we do know is that the governor has clearly said that childcare will likely reopen after June 1st, not before then. We do know that there will be more information likely shared either in his press conference on Friday or on Monday. So more will be known in the next few days. We know that the Child Development Division has been gathering input through a survey that I think has closed now, but almost 1,000 people took that survey across Vermont, early educators, and that CDD has gathered all that feedback and they are synthesizing it as they plan. So they're really paying attention to it. We also know that lots of folks have been making their voices heard to CDD, to us, to other statewide organizations, just flagging the many concerns that are coming up. And we're making sure that all of that information gets to the Child Development Division as they consider what reopening should look like. As CDD starts this planning process, they will be putting things out in writing at some point here, and that information is all compiled on CDD's coronavirus webpage, and then also on our LGK coronavirus resources webpage. We try to consolidate all the links to the latest information, as well as all the webinars and other tools that we're providing for folks to figure out how to act on that guidance. I definitely want to flag that there is a webinar this Friday that's happening at 1 o'clock that the Child Development Division and Building Bright Futures are co-hosting. And that is going to feature an update on reopening plans. We're not sure that they're going to have a fully baked plan by Friday, but that will provide the next opportunity for us to get more information about what they're thinking of. And I believe that Dr. Brina Holmes from the Department of Health is also going to be on that webinar to talk about a lot of the health and safety concerns that are coming up as we think about reopening. And then another great way to stay in the loop is to join an action team, one of our Let's Grow Kids action teams. Because we'll be making sure that information gets out to our action teams about what's happening as it's happening. So during this time, as we pivot towards thinking about recovery and reopening, I wanted to talk a little bit about what our policy asks are right now of legislators and the administration. As Anna said, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, back in January, feels like a decade ago, but was not, we had a robust policy agenda that we were pursuing in Montpelier. And as Anna highlighted earlier, all of those things that we were talking about then are still needed now, right? That not a lot has changed in terms of what we know about the needs for the early childhood education field in Vermont. And we're talking about it differently now, though, within the context of COVID-19 and the state's recovery. So we are still asking for supports for early childhood educators. We're still asking for supports for families to be able to afford and access childcare. We are still asking for updated infrastructure for this system, especially IT. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these pieces. But generally, a lot of what we still need for families and for the early childhood education field are very similar to what they were. So when we are talking about supports for early childhood educators within the context of COVID-19 recovery, we are thinking about it sort of in terms of three components. First of all, we have heard loud and clear from the field and from families that we really need a phased in and thoughtful reopening of childcare programs. We can't just turn on the spigot, all at once and just like be ready to go on day one. It really needs to be a thoughtful approach. And everything that we've been hearing so far indicates that the administration is leaning in that direction. So that they're thinking about this in terms of phases. We also know that early childhood educators have been undervalued and undercompensated for a very long time. And during this pandemic, that has been no exception. And as we think about going back to having childcare reopen, we are definitely going to need increased supports for early childhood educators who are going to be doing this in the even more complicated scenario than was true before. So we know that we need wage supports and scholarship supports for early childhood educators who are going to be providing care to kids who, as we all know, have had disruptions. For many kids, this has been a traumatic time. And so it's extra important that we be supporting the folks who are supporting those children and supporting their continued professional development to be able to support children. We also know very clearly, and have heard this a lot from the field, that we need access to personal protective equipment for early childhood educators. We can't think about reopening unless we have access to those supplies for health and safety that programs are going to need. So those are the sort of big pieces that we're talking about under supports for early childhood educators. We also know that families, even with the great supports that the state has been putting in place to sort of keep the industry alive, we know that many families have been struggling and that that's going to continue to be a struggle in the coming months. So we're strongly encouraging the state to be thinking about leveraging some of the federal resources, not just for all the supports we just talked about, but also supports for families, whether that's through the Child Care Financial Assistance Program or grant programs or other mechanisms to be able to be supporting families to access, to continue to access childcare. And then IT, we all knew that our childcare system really needed updated IT infrastructure. And that has become very clear through this pandemic, through the struggles to set up emergency childcare for essential workers, through the difficulties getting payments out to the field. And I mean, it's no small task to set up an entirely new program to support an entire industry within a couple of weeks, but our IT system has definitely made that way more complicated and way harder for the state. So it's really laid bare the inadequacies we have there. So we're also advocating that that funding be used to support the new IT system. And again, these are all essentially things that we were asking for before, but now it's even more dire. And there are federal resources available for some of these supports. So we are working with the key legislators and with the administration to raise your voices, to inform these conversations. We're having to do it in a really strategic way because if you've read any headlines in the past several months about conversations happening amongst the legislators and the administration, you will know that the overarching context for all of this is that the state budget situation is really, really bad. So there are big holes in our state budgets. That's true for every state, especially including here in Vermont. And it's part of why it is so remarkable that childcare has actually received the level of support that it has over the past couple of months. And that, as Anna said earlier, is in large part thanks to the advocacy you've all been doing. So we know that there's a lot of work for us to do, and we have to do it really carefully right now. If you'd like to learn more about how things are actually working in the State House, or not, when the legislators are not in the State House right now, and more about the budget process, Let's Grow Kids and the Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance co-hosted a webinar on Monday, and that is up on our website on our coronavirus resources page. available for folks to look at if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of how things are working in terms of the budget advocacy. And
Thanks,
Anna,
Sarah.
yeah.
And like I said, this will be recorded. So if you need to play back any of that information, there'll be plenty of time to take it all in. Our next slide highlights some of those headlines that we have in Vermont. And you know, the headlines nationally have been grave and dire for childcare, but that has really not been the case here in Vermont. What we really know is that it's because of supporters like you that our state leaders had the knowledge and the vision and were able to make some dramatic investments in childcare. It's because of the incredible advocacy work of Let's Grow Kids supporters and the work that you've done over the years, your voices, your emails, your phone calls, your stories, the childcare that you provide, the high quality care out there because parents are lifting their voices. All of your hard work ensures that our lawmakers understand how critical childcare is to our work, our families, and our economy. And that's why Let's Grow Kids is positioned to be a trusted advisor to the state throughout this decision-making process. So we really want to say thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. And in turn, you know, we really would like you to thank your legislators. So this is an incredible time, really, to build a relationship with your legislator. And I'm just going to move us right ahead to taking action. We're really focused, you know, on the long-term goal here. So while there's a lot for us to discuss in this short-term transition right now, we're also looking ahead to ensure that we create a system here in Vermont that truly meets all of our children's needs. So we don't want to lose sight of that bigger picture. Vermont's child care crisis has been broken. It was broken before this crisis. And so while, you know, many of us are really struggling with choices for childcare right now, some of us have no childcare in at home. This was actually the case for 50% of Vermont's children before COVID-19 even existed. So we have had a historic problem with not meeting the actual needs of the amount of children who need childcare here in Vermont. And childcare workers were earning an average of $29,000 a year without benefits. And so we know that this is just not good enough for us. So we're hopeful that after witnessing the true impacts of life without childcare, we can come together to strengthen our childcare system so that it supports and values children, early educators, and working families for what they are, the heart of our society and the backbone of our economy. So we've got some actions you can take. Let's see. This slide shows you the pictures of our incredible field team, our field managers who help us cover the entire state. So no matter where you're calling in from tonight, there's a field manager to support you. So the first action you can consider is actually joining an action team, joining the community in your area that you know, that can support you, like that beautiful story that Dawn told. And I actually want to use this opportunity to just read one of the comments we got in the Q&A, which is that there are many early educators on this call tonight who are offering a lot of supports to the parents in their community, whether that's Zoom yoga classes for kids or reading stories, offering resources. I know of early educators that have been dropping off things at children's doorsteps or drawing chalk mazes in their driveways while they're taking a nap so they wake up to this incredible surprise. So you have lots of resources in your community, and we will continue to host this style conversation in smaller local groups. So stay tuned for the next conversations, and you may be able to have more opportunity for back and forth with some of the experts in your area that you can call on for support. Most importantly, please continue to reference our resource page. We will update that as regularly as we can with the most current information, being that, you know, as we hear information that comes from the administration and through the Child Development Division, we'll make sure that you have access to the most accurate and up-to-date info. And like I was saying, this is an incredible time to thank your legislators and the governor. This is an opportunity to build relationships with our decision makers. It's a small town. Also, like Don was saying, you know, these are people you walk past in the street or see at the grocery store. They actually listen when we talk to them. So a simple email in this time to say thank you for the investments you've already made in childcare, and we know that continued investments will be needed to continue to sustain childcare into the future, and actually let your legislators know, please see me as a resource. Call me if you have any questions about how your policy decisions are affecting our community, and let them know I'm here for you. And they will call you. They will ask you questions. And when they do that, you can always reach out to us. So one of the great tools that we have is our legislator dashboard, and that's an easy to access webpage where you can type in your home address and it will tell you exactly who your legislators are, and it's easy to click and send a message right from there. And then we'll know the messages that you send. But if you have a personal relationship with your local policymakers, maybe you call them up yourself or you have their personal email, please also then send us a quick email to let us know, send us a message just to let us know that you made that outreach, because that makes a much stronger collective impact of all of our contacts when we really can track those things, and let us know if your legislators have questions so that we can be sure that our decision makers are also getting the most accurate information. So we have a quick poll before we close the call of a whole menu of actions you can take. I highlighted sort of the 3 top ones, but if you're not a petition signer yet and you're planning to sign the petition, check that off on the poll. If you're planning to email your legislators, let us know. If you'd like to join an action team and build connections in your community, maybe you want to invite your friends or family members to join the Let's Grow Kids community. Send them a link to this webinar if it was helpful, or invite them to sign the petition or join you at an action team meeting. And the BBF and CDD webinar is for early educators specifically. So if you are a child care provider or work at a center, child care center, you can join that webinar. And you can always donate to our emergency fund. That's an incredible way that you can contribute to the Let's Grow Kids mission. So let's see the results of our poll. And you can, I think you can check all of the above if you'd like. Wow, incredible. We've got tons of petition signers and emailers and action team members. And people who are really staying tuned and the most up-to-date information. So this is, it's incredible to see how much actual activity and action is generated when we all come together in this way. Thank you guys so, so much. And for one last word of gratitude, I'm going to invite Beal to give us a little closing here.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you all so much for joining us for the past hour. I have had a truly delightful time, and I hope that you all have taken one thing or many things away from this evening. As has been mentioned, we will follow up. We will send you an email with the resources from this call, and you will have our contact info. So if there are questions that you have, please reach out. We love to hear from you, as you've heard. So I do just want to say thank you. You've heard tonight that the Let's Grow Kids movement is truly possible because of you. Whether you are staying involved or sharing your voice or contacting your legislators or telling your story or being a parent or a child care provider, all of that is being part of the movement. So thank you so much. Everything that we do now and every action that we all take, no matter what it is, leads us into the place that we want to be all together, which is a place where we have a resilient and equitable child care system for children and families and early educators and for all of us. So on behalf of all of us at Let's Grow Kids, I just really want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for all that you do, and for giving in all the ways that you do to our children and our communities. Thank you.
And if each of the panelists want to come off mute and say thank you and goodbye, then we'll close the call. So bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you all so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Virginia.
Bye, Virginia.
All right, 9 o'clock. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye.